Hello everyone out there in YouTube land, and welcome to episode 3 of the Weekly Riff, where in previous episodes we actually broke down a riff from a song, dissected it, talked about how to play it, and a couple topics surrounding it. In this episode I thought we would go back to basics and talk a little bit about warm-up, specifically your right hand technique and how you would warm up that hand. Now first of all, let's go through some basic stuff. Why are warm-ups important? I know a lot of you guys will probably just, when you have some free time, you run, pick up that bass and just start playing. I must confess, I'm guilty of the same thing too. From time to time, if I don't have the time to warm up, I'll totally skip it and I'll go right to practicing. But this is not good, and I'll tell you why. There's 3 main reasons why everyone should warm up whenever they have the opportunity. The first one is that warming up increases blood flow to your hands. More blood flow means your hands are going to be more ready to play the instrument, more accurate, and when maybe those fast passages come by, you're going to be prepared for them. Secondly, warming up is very important because it prevents additional strain on your hands. If you're playing the bass, your hands are one of your most important resources and you have to protect them. If you go in cold and you start playing some really fast stuff and maybe you haven't given your muscles the opportunity to warm up properly, that can lead to all sorts of dangerous conditions like tendonitis and all sorts of other things that will eventually stop you from being able to play the instrument altogether, at least for a longer period of time. Then number 3, if you warm up properly, then over time the warm-ups themselves will help you improve your technique. Technique being how fast you can play, how accurately you can play, basically all the things your friends are going to judge you on. Whoa, he's such a good bass player. Oh, no, he's not that good. That comes down to the technique, and warming up will really help you improve that over time, and you'll hopefully see that as we go through my favorite warm-up techniques. So okay, you sit down and you're ready to practice some songs and you've got tons of time and you still don't warm up. Why is that? Well, I think I know the answer, and I'm going to agree with you on this one. Warming up is boring. It's true, it can be boring. Most conventional warm-ups are fairly repetitive, and once you get good at them, your brain shuts off, maybe you go on autopilot, you warm up for 20 minutes, and you're bored the entire time. Same here. It's something of a necessary evil, but there are some things you can do to make it a little more interesting. I'm going to give you 2 major right-hand warm-ups today, the first of which could be considered boring, but it's very thorough. Gives me a great warm-up. I've been using it for years. And then I'll show you a second one that might be good for situations where you're maybe feeling a little ADD or you're just strapped for time and you can't spend the time to go through it all. I'll show you one that could be a little bit more fun and will still give you a great right-hand warm-up and help to improve your right-hand technique. So let's get started. Now the first warm-up I'm going to show you today is one of my all-time favorites. I was taught it many years ago and I've been using it ever since. It's quite thorough, but could be considered maybe a little mind-numbing or maybe a little boring, but if you've got the time, I highly recommend it. It involves playing 16th notes with your right hand and with your left hand, because we're not focusing on it right now. This warm-up is only for the right hand, but to keep things a little more interesting, with the left hand what we're going to be doing is bouncing around to all of the different main harmonics that you can get out of the bass. Now for people who don't know what harmonics are, I'll go over it really quickly. If you land on a fret that's known for being able to create a harmonic, and I'll show you where those are, instead of actually pushing your finger down onto the fretboard to make a note, you leave the string not touching the fretboard and you simply rest your finger on top of the fret directly over it, but you don't push down. You just rest your finger on the string and then you pluck the note and you get a harmonic instead. Now, where are the frets that can create these harmonics? Well, there are 6 main ones starting at the 12th fret and below. There's one right at the 12th fret, one at the 9th fret, one at the 7th fret, 5th fret, 4th fret, 3rd fret. That one's a little harder to get to ring properly. The last element to this warm-up is that you need a metronome. Very important. Don't ever try to warm up without one, because the whole point of warming up is to increase accuracy, and how are you going to know how accurate you're being if you don't have some consistent frame of reference like a metronome? If you don't own a physical one, don't worry about it. There are plenty of websites that will offer you a metronome for free. My favorite one, nice, clean, easy, and free, is www.metronomeonline.com. It pops up. There's a nice metronome right there on the main page. You can select between a bunch of different tempos, and off you go. No need to carry a physical one around with you anymore. As far as tempo, that's completely personal. It all depends on where your technique is at. It is not a competition with anybody except yourself. So it doesn't matter if you have to start this at quarter note equals 60 or 70, as long as this warm-up kind of pushes your technique to the limit of what you're able to do, and as long as after, say, a couple weeks or a couple months of doing it, you notice you're able to up the tempo just a bit, that's the name of the game. So again, don't feel embarrassed or weird if you have to start this one off at a lower tempo. In the interests of getting through this a little quicker, I'm going to start mine off at quarter note equals 104 today. So we're just about ready to start this warm-up off. Let's just recap. What we're going to be doing, playing 16th notes with our right hand. And to start off, we're going to be playing on each string for 8 beats. We'll start from the G string and we'll move our way down. Of course, if you have a 4-string bass, then you'll only need to go as far as the E string and then go back up again. I'm going to go down to the B string as well because I'm playing a 5-string bass today. I'm going to be playing just simple 16th notes with my right hand, and I'm going to be playing the harmonic instead of an actual note. So 8 beats on the G string, 8 beats on the D string, 8 beats on the A string, etc., etc. Then when we get down to the B string, we'll head back up again. Once we get to the top, we move down to the next harmonic on the 9th fret. Do the same thing. Down and up. And then once we get to the top again, we move down to the 7th, then the 5th, 4th, and 3rd. Down. Then once we get all the way through that, and we've gone down and up on the 3rd fret, then we simply do the same thing in reverse and climb back up. And eventually we end up back at the 12th fret. Now, once you've done that for 8 beats, then you're going to have it and do the same thing, but only for 4 beats this time. All the way down, all the way up. Once you get back up to the top, 2 beats. All the way down, all the way up. Now we do want to have it again, but this is where no matter what level of technique you're at, it might get too challenging to remain at the same speed. So reduce the metronome by a couple clicks, then we'll do 1 beat, then we'll do half a beat, a quarter of a beat. I know it sounds a bit weird, but it'll become quite obvious when we do it. So let's start it off. I'm going to put the metronome at quarter note equals 104. There we go. And start this one off again from the G string, and we'll play simply down the neck for 8 beats per string. Here we go. 3, 4. Important to remember to stay relaxed. Now mistakes are going to happen too, so don't worry about that. This is just a warm-up. You can strive for perfection, but no one's ever going to get there. Now we're done that one, so we step down. Back up. Done that fret. Step down. And so on. So again, you do that all the way down, and then you do that all the way back up again. And then once we get back to the top, without stopping, then instead of doing 8 beats, we're going to do 4 beats. It looks like this. All right. And then step down. Etc. All the way down, all the way up. Then have it again, 2 beats. Step down. Once we're done that, all the way down, all the way up, 1 beat per string. I'm usually up for doubling this up, otherwise it's over too quickly. So I'm going up and down per string twice. Etc., etc. All the way down, all the way up. Then, let's stop the metronome for a sec. Once you've done that, all the way down and all the way up, we're now at half a beat, which means 2 16th notes per string. This is where it starts to get a little tricky on the right hand and the shifting between the strings. So it's advisable to slow the metronome down no matter what speed you're at. Slow it down a bit so you can really nail your technique. Another important thing to think about as you're doing this, remember to keep alternating your fingers on your right hand. What I mean by alternating is if I'm playing 2 16th notes per string, I'm going to go, I'm going to call this my first finger and my second finger. I'm going to go first finger, second finger, and then when I want to go down a string, I'm going to go with the first finger again, second finger again. Some of you might have learned to play, it's kind of a bad habit, but it's still done all the time. If you play first finger, second finger, and then your second finger is already resting on this string, so most people will simply, if they need to move down to the next string, they'll simply play the next note with their second finger. It's called raking, as opposed to alternating fingers as you go down. Technically, alternating fingers as you go down the strings is better, but that could be a hard habit to break, especially if you've already been playing for years and you do a lot of raking. It just gives you a little bit less control than if you were to alternate fingers. Now let's start this one off. I'm going to set the metronome to quarter note equals 96 now. We were at 104 before. There we go. And again, we're going to be playing half a beat per string, which means 2 16th notes per string. I'm going to do that whole pattern 4 times per harmonic, or else again it's over too quickly. So here we go at quarter note equals 96. And so on. Now, like I said, I really like that warm-up. It helps me get my right hand feeling nice and loose and warm, and it probably takes between 10 and 15 minutes if you do the whole thing. Now for the second right hand warm-up option, say you can't imagine getting through that entire warm-up I just showed you, you're feeling a little ADD today, or you just don't have the time for it. Here's kind of a quick and dirty way that's maybe a little bit more interesting as well. It doesn't give you quite as thorough of a warm-up as the first one, but it'll still do the trick in a pinch. It's always more interesting to play along with a song that you like, isn't it? A lot of warm-ups are melodically awful to listen to, including the one I just showed you. There's absolutely zero interest from a musical perspective. They're simply technical. So if you pick a song, I find that it helps to make the entire thing a little bit more enjoyable to listen to. Now, of course, it's got to be a song that focuses on the type of technique you're interested in working on. One of my favorite bands is Red Hot Chili Peppers, and there's a song of theirs off of Californication. It's track 2. It's called Parallel Universe, and I really like it. It wasn't a single, but it's one of my favorite songs, actually, of theirs. Flea is playing pretty much non-stop 16th notes throughout the entire thing. Maybe a little bit of a letdown for anyone that knows the song. Flea is using a pick on it. It's quite challenging to play through the whole song with your fingers because the entire song is 16th notes on the bass. Basically, it's the warm-up I just showed you, but with something a little bit more interesting musically going on at the same time. Now again, what I did for this type of warm-up is I created my own little click track. Same as last week when I was practicing Filthy by Justin Timberlake. This week I just created a very simple mock guitar part for the song Parallel Universe, and it makes for just a fun little track to play along with if I'm warming up using this song. Now, of course, you can warm up using the actual song too, but if you don't have access to it, this would be a good half measure. For timing's sake, I'm only going to do an example of one verse, one chorus, and the bridge, just to show you how much more interesting this type of warm-up could be. And there you have it. Hope you enjoyed this episode of the Weekly Riff. If you did, please consider subscribing to the channel or hitting that thumbs up button for me. It would really help me out. And stay tuned for my weekly cover, which happens every Friday. Hope everyone's having a great day. And until next time, Benny the Bassman, signing off.